live at the start for the Diamond Jubilee, the junior women's quads event. Began in 2012, the Diamond Jubilee of Queen Elizabeth, and away go Great Marlow School on the right of our picture and Newark Rowing Club on the left.
Two closely matched crews by the looks of it, Matt, coming off the start.
One of the things that makes this a brilliant event is how closely matched the crews are. Both of these quads are bow steered. We were talking earlier, if you were with us, about how difficult it is to steer off the start. They have a pillar and a V-shape to try to guide them. They can look behind and see that. And everybody here at Henley is also concerned because once you transition from these buoys, which is what you're used to racing alongside, to these hardwood booms, then any mistake can end your race right there and be quite dangerous. So a little bit close here on this side of the picture, and actually that might be happening right now as can you see the oars there in the stern of that boat just touching against the booms? They steer away to correct. Now what often happens here is an overcorrection, Jim.
Yeah, Great Marlow School have done very well actually, because although they've maybe lost half a length out of that slight graze, I guess, of the booms, they've got back into a rhythm, and they're back trying to get back on terms.
Yeah, good correction there from Great Marlow School, steered from the bow seat and back into the race. Now what you have to do in this situation as an athlete is you have to put that out of your mind. You have to get back to your race plan, back to the quality of rowing you want to do. The temptation can be some tension creeps in. You also want to try to make amends for a little bit of a steering error, and that means you start to kind of push a bit harder, maybe break up the rhythm from the rest of the crew. So they need calm heads on these young women's shoulders in order to recover from that. And we join the race further down the track as we approach the halfway mark at Fawley.
And speaking of recovery, Matt, the Newark crew have had to go through the qualifying races. They've all had a race, so that might start to affect them this point, so as they're approaching halfway through the race.
Yeah, uniquely this year, the qualifying races were held at Eton Dorney, which was, you might remember from the 2012 Olympics. This Diamond Jubilee event began in 2012, but 2012 was when the Olympics were hosted over at Eton Dorney. The Olympics rowing was hosted at Henley first in 1908 and then again in 1948. So a nice connection there. The qualifying crews racing on the latest Olympic track in the UK, coming to race in the course that gave the Olympics its standard course length in 1908 and 1948.
Speaking of Olympics and sort of famous Olympians, obviously Great Marlow School, a famous alumni of Sir Steve Redgrave, who I was reading the history of the Great Marlow School, and he, along with what was the Amateur Rowing Association at the time and the Marlow Rowing Club, helped rejuvenate them some 20 years or so ago, and they've gone from strength to strength since then.
Yeah, we see the chairman, Steve Redgrave's the chairman of Henley Regatta, about. You'll sometimes see him in a Marlow blazer. He's proud to wear that and support his local club and the most famous man in Marlow for many years as well.
Let's look at this crew then. Moving nicely together, the boat moving through the water without checking at the catch.
Yeah, these young women were second in the junior women quads event at the Met, so no slouches, some experience there, managed to get some good racing in despite the challenges of the year that they've had, and actually again looking reasonably well drilled for a quad under pressure as they come through the middle of the course.
It's interesting, I think the angles, the angles of the blades to the water are slightly different, so even though this crew are doing really well, there's probably more to get out of this crew, I think, going forward in a week.
Yeah, I think one of the opportunities for these young crews is more time on the water, which has not always been available in recent months because of the thing. But we hope that there'll be much more time available on the water, and it won't be long for them to massively increase the amount of time they've had in the boat. And while we can train on ergometers, while we can run, while we can cycle, while we can do weights, there's no real substitute for the technical and coherent benefits of being in a boat together.
And it's also getting used to this event. It's an absolutely unique occasion, and when you're out on the water, getting used to the sights, the sounds, the landmarks, how the water behaves. We talked earlier about what the wind's been doing today and how that has an effect for the wash. You can see this pleasure cruiser coming on the right-hand side of the shot, and it's wash. It shouldn't come onto course, but the little gaps in the booms it sometimes does, and all little quirks that makes this course so unique.
So we're looking at Newark here, sculling well, and opened up further lead since that. You can just see at the back of the picture there the Fawley mark, the big white sort of box on the course there. That's the halfway mark. So they're now coming into just out of the last third quarter of the race and into the final stages of the race. We take a look over our shoulder just to check We're still steering straight off those booms. There's a little gap between the booms, you mentioned there, Jin, to allow river traffic to go back and forth, and that can be a bit disconcerting if you're the steers. Suddenly you lose sight of that out of the corner of your eye.
Look at that look of determination on the stroke there of the Great Marlow School crew. They're determined to get back on level terms. They've got a mountain to climb at this point as they're going past the mile signal as they're coming into the enclosures, but they're not giving up. The tenacity is brilliant. They're going to fight all the way to the finish.
And you know, you learn a lot from the races that don't go in your favour, probably more from those races actually than the races that do go in your favour. And I think, you know, I certainly remember the first time I competed at Henley, going out in the second round and finding it a really tough experience, but learned so much about how to manage myself, how to understand where I was at the course, how to deal with being under pressure, how to deal with being down in a race. And so there's lots to take away from these experiences, particularly at this stage of their early careers in rowing. We hope to see many of these young women coming back through the many women's events we now have at Henley Royal Regatta, with 3 new women's eights events coming in this year: the Wargrave, the Island, and the Junior Women's Eights event. So fantastic to see many more women having opportunities to race and win at Henley.
And now we look at the Newark crew. They're down to 28 strokes a minute. They've probably got a thought for tomorrow. They've got Shiplake A in the draw, which will be a challenging race for them. So they want to conserve the energy at this point, and also just enjoy it. You know, we forget sometimes that rowing here is meant to be about, you know, meant to be fun as well. It's not just about competition.
Well, they'll certainly be enjoying this. They'll certainly be enjoying this feeling. Lovely rowing, applause from a crowd alongside you, the evening sunshine, and the thoughts of a race well rowed, and probably get rid of the first wave of nerves about appearing on the Henley track for the first time, and be a little bit more comfortable with the experience of sitting on the start in the next round tomorrow. So as we approach the last 6 or 7 strokes of the race, that's Newark Rowing Club. Really strong effort here in the Diamond Jubilee Junior Women's Quads events, crossing the line, loose and relaxed, and just paddling through, ready for tomorrow. And Great Marlow School now passing the progress board into their last 10 strokes of this race. You can say they've given it absolutely everything. Huge credit to these 4 young women, having a real go, jacking the rate up as many strokes as you can between now and the finish, and through they come. Great effort from Great Marlow School. So that's a win for Newark Rowing Club. We see here, happy with that over Great Marlow School.